In many ways, too, because I'm a big horror fan myself, too, but I always kind of think Batman, the animated series, was bizarrely the gateway to that, because...
It is! It totally is!
So still to this day, I'm just like, some of the most terrifying things I've ever seen are like the Clayface origin episodes and stuff like that. And now they're saying they're going to make a Clayface movie. You're like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for that. Like, it would be one of those things, like, is it like David Cronenberg doing it or someone? It's like, no, Flanagan's doing it. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe he might mild it out a bit. I don't know.
This is the problem I had with, I know we talked about it on the Patreon, with Wednesday, right? Because back in the day, I'm going to sound very old, back in my day, kids had a lot of gateway horror. Like, the Addams Family wasn't horror, but it's like a little gateway for kids to be like, oh, I'm into this spooky kind of world. But then you get stuff for kids now, it doesn't seem the same to me. It could be because I'm old. But, like, Wednesday didn't have any spooks, really.
No. That's why I'm so happy with the new Dungeons & Dragons, is that there's parts in it that are, I would thought, like, oh, that's probably a little bit too scary for kids.
Perfect, though. You want it to just push it.
Yeah, there's a scene in it where I was like, whoa! Like, I kind of like, geez, that startled me. And I was like, oh, that's what you should have in kids' movies. Things in it that are inappropriate.
Yep.
Inappropriately scary, at least, because like, that's how you introduce these things.
Well, as a kid, I was traumatized by Raiders of the Lost Ark when the Nazis' faces melt off.
I think it's a little bit... Now I do see the gateway horror, but it's a little bit different because I think we had a lot more of it. Assuming we're kind of all in this sort of same age range, we had a lot more of it, and I think the parental, like my parents were sort of conscious of like what I was watching, but they were still showing me like Alien and stuff. Like I saw Night of the Living Dead when I was 10, so like they were still. I think there was more leniency, whereas now, and my friends who are parents, they're like, except for my partner who has 2 kids, he was showing his kids anything they wanted to watch. You want to watch Child's Play? Sure, let's watch Child's Play. You want to turn it off? We'll turn it off. Yeah, and I think nowadays, because I think like gateway horror, like we were saying with Batman animated series, also like Scooby-Doo, but for kids now, it's sort of... it's a little bit different in terms of like the new Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark movie, the Goosebumps movie. And also in the animated world, there's of course like Paranorman, Monster House, Frankenweenie.
Oh, I love Frankenweenie. It's
mostly the animated stuff. Yeah. And I love the short. I grew up on the short for Frankenweenie. So they, it's a tick softer than I think what we had, though I think Scary Stories was fantastic. It's a little softer than what we had. Because also I have friends who have kids where they're like, oh no, we can't show them Gremlins. And like, I saw Gremlins when I was very young because they're like, oh, they'll have night. I was like, everyone's gotten soft. I was like,
I was like 5 when I watched it or something.
I was like, let the kid decide.
I think the only problem I would have with Gremlins is that if you're raising your kid to believe in Santa Claus, it's like, well, there is a scene that very explicitly states that there is no Santa Claus at one point. That would be my only concern. It would be like, oh, everything else is fine.
You can talk your way out of it though, but I think it's sort of like let the kids sort of dictate. We also had the Goosebumps TV show and Erie, Indiana, all that. But I think you bring up something interesting with Wednesday because Addams Family absolutely I think is gateway horror, the movies, and I had to remember I was like, oh yeah, it fits in with that. The generation it's for.
Absolutely.
There are things about that show I really liked, but I understood. I was like, this isn't for me, and that's okay. I can still enjoy this. I watched the whole thing. It took me a minute to get through it, but I just love Jenna Ortega so much, and Emma Myers, who's in it too.
They were
plays
both
her
amazing.
Roommate. Yeah, and Joy Sunday, and so I liked. I was like, this sort of reminds me of it reminded me of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Absolutely.
It reminded me of that specific movie. I was like, oh yeah, when I was the same age as the people when that movie came out as the people watching Wednesday now. And it's a great marketing tool for Hot Topic and things like that.
So I bet.
It's like, and so it's just not all of it. But then, it kind of just makes me go back to those things that I loved growing up and what inspired me as a filmmaker, the gateway horror. And it's just different. It's a different generation, what they're into. And I can recognize that and still enjoy it. But I do agree it's different.
Using Addams Family and Wednesday, I actually think is a good one, though, because like our Addams Family, at least, I know it's not the original, the show, but the movies, they're quite like not necessarily scary, but they're messed up. Right? Like you've got all these strange stories about Fester.
It's just darker.
It's dark. And, like Gomez in the... spoiler alert for our Patreon episodes. Gomez in the show, when you find out, he might have killed someone and Wednesday's, like, distraught. I'm like, no, hang on. The Wednesday in the movies would love that.
Yeah.
That's so... The show is so all over the place, though, because they have her getting worried about, my father might have killed someone. And then she talks about Fester as if he ate Girl Scouts and stuff. And she seems to be okay with that. She loves Fester. It's like, but you think that he cannibalized people. So what is it? Like where? Yeah. So then when Jenna Ortega comes out and says, like, I had to talk to the writers about how inconsistent the writing was. It's like, well, I can see why. Jesus Christ, it's all over the goddamn place. But
still fun.
They could have really pushed it.
Yeah.
I think still fun. But I wanted them to push it. But again, I get it. There's like, for the demographic they're going for, it's just it's a little bit different now. And of course, look at what the generation below us, I guess the Gen Z, what they're dealing with on a daily basis that we did not do. Like we were not doing school shooter drills, and we were not doing like that, even though Columbine happened when we were at least I was in high school, grade school, high school, middle school, high school. We did not have those active. We are not experiencing what these kids are experiencing. And in terms of like finishing your last couple of years of school via Zoom during a pandemic, like they got a lot they've been carrying on their shoulders.
I mean, that great movie, the Fallout with Jenna Ortega dealing with some of that very stuff as well. So yeah,
exactly. So I get it. And I love gateway horror. I would love to make gateway horror because it was so important to me. And there's a lot of animated stuff in that world too that as Evan touched on.
Yeah, I think that's the big gateway horror of last year too was season 4 of Stranger Things, where it's like, this is very Freddy Krueger. Like someone else, people are like, oh, so cool. And you're like, well, if you like that, there was a whole thing in the 80s that was there was a new one out like every year. It was great.